their pay and conditions. So they take this very seriously. Not just the CFU, but they're the most significant union behind this. They have managed to engage the ACTU in a campaign to do something about the 457, to restrict it, to incorporate into it labour market testing. That is, the prime policy is to force the government to require any employer that sponsors a migrant under the 457 visa to show that he or she is first tested the domestic labour market and is able to establish that they couldn't find a local to do the work. Now, there's an amazing thing, when you think about it, that there wasn't any labour market testing required in the first place, but there wasn't, and what they've sought to do is to get the government to change its position on this. You can see how this is nicely poised the issue, because we've got these modernisers there who think any regression back to a protectionist mentality where we actually say, hey, you can't take somebody on unless you've established a local one to do it. That's regarded as pulling up the shutters, taking us back to the bad old days. This is the perspective of modernisers like Bowen, who's now the treasurer, and a number of other ALP elites I could name who fit in this category. Once this campaign got going, it caused a sharp split in Labor ranks. There were some traditionalists, Senator Cameron, perhaps the best known, our own Kelvin Thompson, and others who did support this push, and a number of other in the caucus pushed for it, against the reluctance of the Minister for Immigration at the time, who was Bowen. As a consequence, we saw the Prime Minister of the day, Julia Gillard, announce that she would change things. Her assertion was that Australians should be at the head of the queue for jobs, not at the back of the queue. So that was a very important sort of protean statement. Whether she would have ever pursued this, like many other aspects of her prime ministership, is uncertain. But at least she stated it publicly. And that was really important, because it's challenging the modernisers' position. And the potential here is that if you accept that with 457 visa, that you don't bring people in if you can get somebody locally, well, why allow all these points-tested migrants or temporary migrants coming in as working holiday makers if you know they're taking jobs that locals could fill? You potentially you'd be obliged to apply this principle right across the spectrum, and that could lead to a fundamental challenge to the settings that are in place. Well, the government, parts of the government did resist Julia's announcement because of the point I'm making, that some modernisers simply don't like to see this sort of thing happen. But it also turned out that the previous governments had already given away our right to labour market test temporary migrants. Believe it or not, in preparation for the Doha round of World Trade negotiations in 2000, we had put an offer on the table that in return for other countries offering tariff concessions, particularly on food, we would give up our right to labour market test temporary entry migrants coming to Australia. That was a formal statement. It was first initiated under the coalition. It was affirmed by the Rudd government. And then when the Immigration Department was confronted by the fact that the Prime Minister now said, we want to revise this, the Immigration Department and the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade had to remind her, hey, we've already signed this away. Well, they found a way around it, fudged it, and as a consequence of pressure from the unions, legislation was introduced to change the 457 regime to require labour market testing. The legislation went through the very last day of Parliament. Hasn't been proclaimed, it's not implemented yet, but at least it went through. So it's something to hang your hat on. When you look at it in detail, it's pretty weak. They only require labour market testing at the moment for trade level people, but not for professionals, except for occupations that they haven't stated. So it's a bit mealy-mouthed, but nonetheless, something has happened. It was opposed, of course, by the coalition. So where we are now then is that as part of this political process, we have the ACTU now out clearly stating the principle that Australians should have first access to jobs available in Australia. They've applied it in legislative change only to 457, but at least the principle stated. The unions have put the same principle, and in the case of the CFMEU, in order to legitimate their campaign, they're not just limiting to jobs in mining and construction. They're saying this should apply for all workers in Australia. And they're serious players. They have a lot of money. They can influence Labor governments, because if they withdraw their funds, electoral funds, they're in deep trouble. I wonder if any of you have seen their efforts so far. I have. If you drive along the freeway out in the western suburbs, you've seen it. You've seen the sign which says less 457 visas, more apprenticeships, something to that effect. So they're spending big dollars. So that's what I'm suggesting to you, that is something we can attach some importance to. There's a potential here. When surveys are done asking Australian people what they think about bringing migrants in for jobs that locals could fill, the vast majority say that should not happen. So there is broad public support for this principle. One of the important developments with this 457 fight was that the Greens came on side. Adam Bant put legislation to the Parliament before the legislation that the government finally put up, supporting very strong labour market testing rule to apply to all jobs. And they supported the legislation that the Labor government did put up. So that's an important start. So that's the positive. And I think that an organisation like SPA has a role to play here. SPA is now getting into the public arena. The key to making progress with this is not lack of ordinary people's potential support, it's making them aware of this. And I think the fact that SPA is getting into the arena and putting these kind of points is beginning to put these kind of points is a good sign as well. So I'll leave it there, and have any questions, happy to deal with them.
Fantastic, thank you very much, Rob.